So Savitri is now approaching her soul. We have seen some pictures last time. She's coming up there again. We were here at 125.16. There was felt a blissful nearness to the goal. Heaven leaned low to kiss the sacred hill. The air trembled with passion and delight. The air trembled with passion and delight. The air, this is an amp, trembled is a trochee with passion. Well, again amp, passion and Pyrrhic delight I am. So that's the metrical composition of this line. The air trembled with passion and delight. See, the air trembled. Suddenly, the meter has changed slightly. And it is that which gives you a kind of a swing to the whole movement. It is climbing up, again coming down, and again climbing up, again a little pause, passion and delight, you see. The air trembled with passion and delight. A rose of splendor on a tree of dreams. A rose of splendor on a tree of dreams. The face of dawn out of moon twilight grew. As I told you last time, we are passing through the entire sequence now of the night. She was passing through the night of God. Now slowly, we have got the twilight, we have got dawn, we have got day coming and approaching. She is going to enter into the daylight of her soul. A rose of splendor on a tree of dreams. Now, it's a very beautiful image. So you can imagine a rose, very powerful, beautiful rose of God. But it is a rose of splendor here, not a rose of God. On a tree of dreams, obviously, because the sequence of night and sleep and all that thing is continuing. Therefore, on a tree of dreams, you see. A rose of splendor on a tree. Now, perhaps the beauty of this rose and of this tree of dreams is that there are no thorns. It must be a tree of dreams without thorns, you see. The face of dawn out of moon twilight grew. This epic dawn, splendid dawn for the soul coming out. D capital again, you see. It is the spiritual dawn, Usha. Usha, who is full of light, who is full of truth. Usha, who makes the pathway for the sun's travel. She makes the path for the sun to travel, the dawn. And therefore comes the day. Day came, a priest of sacrifice of joy, priest. So he is a priest, he is a pujari, he is a pandit, offering worship. Worship of what? Of joy, of happiness. Into the worshipping silence of her world. Her, of course, stands for Savitri, not for dawn. He carried, so day is masculine. He carried a martyr, he, priest. He carried, he stands as priest here. He carried, which is of course again the day. Day came priest. So specifically he refers grammatically to priest. Today also, you see. He carried a mortal luster as his robe. Mortal, we saw last time, immortal, that kind of a thing. What we have in all the other editions is immortal, not immortal. Immortal. Now, I think this is more appropriate, immortal luster, more appropriate, because after all, the day is there, it will come, it will sink down, it will go away. And he is wearing a robe, luster is robe, you see. He is not wearing the immortal luster. Trailed heaven like a purple scarf, so the heaven itself is this purple scarf, and wore as his vermilion caste mark a red sun. So he is a priest, so he is putting big kumkum or whatever we call it, chandan, on his forehead, a vermilion caste mark, a red sun. Well, this is what happens if you have seen the sunrise in the morning. It is really red and it really looks like a big chandan mark on the forehead, you see. Now, why caste mark? Because the whole image is of a priest, of a worshipper. And caste mark also here means basically something which is significant, something very characteristic of the priestly kind. Nobility, learnedness, worshipping spirit, all these are the qualities of the priest. And it is that which he is wearing and showing here. Trailed heaven like a purple scarf and wore as his vermilion caste mark a red sun. As if an old remembered dream come true. See, you have got dream here, you also have here trio dreams. But they are quite far away from each other to poetically not look jarring. They are well separated from each other. Otherwise, the proximity of the same word in poetry is taken as a flaw, as a blemish. But they are well separated and you can therefore take this thing independently of the previous dreams. As if an old remembered dream come true, she recognized in her prophetic mind, she Savitri, recognized in her prophetic mind. See, Savitri is approaching her soul. And she suddenly now, yes, but I have been seeing it earlier also. That experience is kind of renewed for her. Prophetic mind, the imperishable luster of that sky, recognized, you see, that is important. Because she knows it. At the moment, she has got an earthly veil. That veil is getting removed, and therefore, oh yeah, I am familiar with this picture. I am familiar with this scene. That's what she says. The imperishable luster of the sky, the tremulous sweetness of that happy air, and covered from mind's view and life's approach, the mystic cavern in the sacred hill. See the whole thing, she is going deeper and deeper as if into the cave forest. Because in the cavern, she is saying, sacred hill, the hill of the soul, and knew the dwelling of her sacred soul. Knew. Why knew? Because some kind of a memory has awakened in her. You can recognize the moment she is approaching that, she is feeling, look, I am kind of familiar with this one. I had forgotten about these things. But now she is relating everything with a cavern in the sacred hill, cavern, mystic cavern. Cavern, what the Sanskrit description says, guha, hridaya guha, antara guha. It is the guha, cavern inside, in which the soul is seated. That is the standard scripture description in the Sanskrit literature, hridaya guha. The mystic cavern in the sacred hill, the mystic cavern in the sacred hill, and knew the dwelling of a secret soul. Again, as I said, knew, recognition, all those things are kind of remembrances. As if in some Elysian occult depth, blissful, delightful, glorious, Elysian, where heroes and virtuous live after death. Land of joy, of lovely glades, of fortunate wood. Now, in Greek tradition, Elysian mystery is something which is practiced deep in the forest, kept away from general people. You had to sort of get initiated, you had to get qualified to join that mystic club. But Savitri is now already in that occult depth, as if in some Elysian occult depth, truth's last retreat from thought's profaning touch. Thought will not enter beyond that place. Last retreat. Here is the truth, thought will come and stop at that point. You cannot think of what the soul is. You can feel, you can know, you can recognize, but you can think of it. Thought's profaning touch. The moment it will touch, it will get kind of spoiled, profane. As if in a rock temple solitude hid, God's refuge from an ignorant, worshipping world. It lay withdrawn even from life's innocence, receding from the entangled heart's desire. So neither thought, nor heart's desire, nor sense can approach that place. God's refuge from an ignorant, worshipping world. He is kind of protecting himself against his worshippers, against his devotees. Which is good. Therefore, it's a retreat for him, a refuge. Receding from the entangled heart's desire, a marvelous brooding twilight met the eyes. So you are still in the twilight zone. And a holy stillness held that voiceless space. An awful dimness wrapped the great rock doors. Rock because it's a mountain scene, hill. She's going from one region to the other in the cave. An awful dimness wrapped the great rock door, carved in the massive stone of matter's strand. Matter is jnanamagna, jnanamagna in that place. It is absorbed in itself. Matter is absorbed in itself. And that is the stone. And in that, the whole stone is carved in the form of an image. An awful dimness wrapped the great rock door, carved in the massive stone of matter's strand. Two golden serpents round the lintel curled, enveloping it with their pure and dreadful strength, looked out with wisdom's deep and luminous eyes. Two golden serpents round the lintel curled, enveloping with their pure and dreadful strength. Only those who have courage, who are absolutely fearless, they alone can cross the door. And they are very powerful. They will not allow a weak person to enter in at all. But their strength is pure strength, pure occult strength. It is not vital strength at all, occult strength. Looked out with wisdom's deep, luminous eyes. The serpent's eyes are luminous. They are looking at it. They are watching. They will not allow any stray intruder to enter in at all. Those who have qualified themselves, they alone will be able to cross into the inner part. Two golden serpents round the lintel curve, enveloping it with their pure and dreadful thought, strength, looked out with wisdom's deep and luminous eye. An eagle covered it with wide, conquering wings. What we saw just now. An eagle covered it with wide, conquering wings. Flames of self-lost, immobile reverie. Doves crowded the grey, musing cornices like sculptured postures of white bosom peace. Eagle, that is the word of Zeus. Eagle. It is also Vishnu's bird, Garuda, with wide conquering wings. Flames of self-lost, immobile reverie, doves. They are the birds of peace. In Christian theology, dove also stands for the Holy Ghost. Holy Ghost, you see. Kind of an innocence is there, like sculptured postures of white bosom peace. Now, you see here, traditionally in the vital world, eagle, serpents, doves, they don't go together. Serpent and eagle, they are enemies of each other, you see, basically. But here, the peace is so deep, so powerful, that all these instincts have become quiet. There are no more those things at all, you see. Under the pressure, under the presence of that luminous peace, they have forgotten their instincts at all, totally. And therefore they can live together here. That is the quality of the whole place. In Ramayana, there is a description of the ashram of a rishi. The search party looking for Sita in all the places is going from place to place. And at one time, Hanuman, he comes to a mountain where there is the ashram of a rishi. The moment he enters that place, he suddenly feels something totally different. The lions are there, deer is there, all kind of animals are there, and they are living merrily, happily together there at that place. They are not enemies at all, you see. Living lions, deer, grazing, moving around there. They don't go and attack that. They live with serpent, eagles, Garuda, Pakshi. All these things are there because the power of the tapasya of the rishi is such that the spiritual atmosphere is spread all around there. And these people, these animals, these creatures, they have absorbed an element of that thing and forgotten their nature. And therefore they can live together. They do live together. But
what do the lions eat?
what do they?
What do the lions eat?
What do they eat? They eat the spiritual. They eat the spiritual food. They eat the spiritual food. They eat the spiritual food. You see, tapasya. See? Yeah. 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 Claims of self-loss, immobile, reverie, doves crowded. You see, that is why it does. It is the Holy Spirit. It doesn't eat. You see, lies sculptured postures of white bosom peace. Across the threshold sleep, she entered in. So she is going now from the threshold front door, and found herself amid great figures of gods. See, by the way, here you got grey musing cornices. What a beautiful, elaborate description is there. Cornices, small little decorations on the wall, projecting out of the wall, you see, all around. In the ashram, we have got very beautiful cornices, you see. We don't notice them, but they are really very delicate, very beautiful, you see, in the ashram, you see, cornices. And as they are meditating, you see, across the threshold sleeve, she entered in and found herself amid great figures of God. Found herself amid great figures of God. In the temple there. The temple is a rock-hewn temple. You have got statues of various gods carved in stone. Or else on the walls, frescoes, you have got paintings of the gods and goddesses there and of episodes depicting their scene. Conscious in stone and living without breath. Obviously, they are stone, rocks. Obviously, they can't breathe there, but then they're conscious. These gods and goddesses, they're conscious of what they are. Conscious in stone and living without breath, watching with fixed regard the soul of man. What do they do? See, on the tables you see a lot of carvings, you see. What do they do? Watching with fixed regard the soul of man, executive figures of the cosmic self. So they are not just dummies there. They are executives. They have functions to do. They are positioned there. World symbols of immutable potency. Symbols, they are not just algebraic signs. They are living figures there of immutable potency. Now, conscious is stone. We have two sonnets of Sri Aurobindo where he describes his experience. The stone goddess. The stone goddess. You have seen that, no? Yeah. A living presence, deathless and divine. In the stone god, a living presence, deathless and divine. From a sculptured limb, the goddess looked at me. She is looking at him. Look at me. Godhead, the great world mother. She sees the image of the goddess, the stone goddess, and she is looking at him, living. He says, living presence, P capital, the divine himself there present in her. Godhead looked at me, and this was in the very early stage when I was in Baroda, before 1905. Once he had gone along with his friend, K.G. Deshpande, to a temple on the banks of Narmada river, Chandod, and a stone image is there, and this is the experience he had. The same experience he had again in Pune. Pune there is a hill called Parvati Hill, and there is an image of goddess there. He had gone there on the Parvati Hill climbing up. Again in Kashmir, the stone goddess looking at him. Voiceless, omnipotent, inscrutable, voiceless, immutable, omniscient. A beauty and mystery flesh or stone can break. That's the image of the goddess, stone goddess. The immobile goddess in her house of stone. Wise were the human hands that set her there, the stone. The soul of that lives calm, pure, alone, live in an image and a sculptured face. So this is a conscious in stone. So this is experiential, not just an imagination. Savitri is going from place to place in a rock temple, and the temple is having on the frescoes on the walls all these carved images all around in sim. In South Indian temples, you have seen on the big gopurams any number of gods and goddesses. In fact, it's a very common feature in all the temples. Any Birla temple, if you see in the north, you see all kind of Vishnu gods and goddesses there represented. Conscious in stone and living without breath, watching with fixed regard the soul of man, executive figures of the cosmic cell, world symbols of immutable potency. On the walls covered with significant shame, looked at her, the live scene of man and beast. So on the frescoes you have got all these depictions, you see. And the high meaning of the life of gods having high meaning, that they have something to do here in the cosmic functioning. The power and necessity of these numberless worlds. Now he says, Savitri recognized here, this is important. You have got the entire hierarchy of worlds. All kinds of beings are there everywhere, from the lowest till the worlds of gods and goddesses. Now, are all these necessary for the purposes of this creation? Savitri says that yes, power and necessity, they have to be vital God, they have to be mental God, they have to be spiritual God, they have to be mind God, they have to be the supramental gods, they have to be the transcendental gods. All these things are there, all they are there, and they are there, necessarily they are there. They have a role to play in the cosmic functioning. The power and necessity of this numberless world and faces of beings and stretches of world space spoke the succinct and inexhaustible hieratic message of the climbing plane. The entire hierarchy of the 14 lokas of the Puranas, the 7 below and 7 rising up, 14 planes of consciousness, 14 worlds, they constitute the entire hierarchy, starting from the nethermost Patal, all the way up to heaven. They are there, necessarily there. They are not there for nothing. They have a role to play. Hieratic message, sealed message of the climbing plane. In their immensitude, signing infinity, they were the extension of the self of God and housed impassively receiving all. His figures and his small and mighty acts and his passion and his birth and life and death and his passion and his birth and life and death. Practically monosyllabic line, but very powerful. And his passion and his birth and life and death. First reason, Anapes, and his passion. Second is empiric, passionate. His birth, I am. Anapes, spirit, and 3 I am. And his return to immortality. So, what is the message? That the soul, man's soul, has to go back to immortality. They are working there for that purpose. They are speaking that message. The hieratic message is of climbing back to immortality. His figures and his small and mighty and his passion and his birth and life and death and his return to immortality. to the abiding in eternal is their climb, to the pure existence everywhere the same, to the sheer consciousness and the absolute form, and the unimaginable and formless blame, to the mirth in time, and the timeless mystery of the triune being who is all and one, and yet is no one but himself apart. To the abiding and eternal is the climb, abiding and eternal. Who is this eternal? To whom all these planes, the hierarchy of the worlds is climbing. For whom? Who is this eternal? He is of course abiding, but who is that? He is pure existence. He is consciousness. He is force. He is bliss. Sat Chit Ananda. Chit Shakti Ananda. This is pure existence, Sat. Consciousness and force, Chit Shakti. Bliss, Ananda. So, to whom they are climbing? To Satchidananda. They are climbing to the all the way up to the transcendental world, to the mirth and time and the timeless mystery of the triune. Therefore, is the triune being. Who is this triune being? Satchidananda, which are described. Existence, consciousness, force, and bliss. To whom they are climbing. And yet is no one but himself. He is all, yet he is no one. He remains away from all. He is aloof from them. There was no step of breathing men, no sound, only the living nearness of the soul. Everything has disappeared, all that is human. Yet all the worlds and God Himself were there. For every symbol was a reality and brought the presence which had given it life. Brought the presence, the divine presence itself, the Satchidananda presence itself. All this he saw and inly felt and knew, not by some thought of mind, but by the power of the self itself, the inner sense, power of the self itself. All this he saw and inly felt and knew, not by some thought of mind, but by the self. A light not born of sun or moon or fire, a light that dwelt within and saw within, shedding an intimate visibility, made secrecy more revealing than the word. That light makes it open than the word can describe. Made secrecy more revealing than the word. Our sight and sense are a fallible gaze and touch, and only the Spirit's vision is wholly true. That is what Savitri is having now. A light not born of sun or moon or fire. This is straight from the Upanishad, this line. That line appears in 3 Upanishads. Katha Upanishad, Mundaka Upanishad, and Shvetashwara Upanishad. This verse is Na tatra suryo bhati na chandra tarakam nema vidito bhamti kutoyam agni tameva bhanta manubhati sarvam tasya bhasa sarvamidam vibhati. Na tatra suryo, na tatra suryo, na chandra tarakam, moon, na agni. Well, he has not put one more here, but here the Shaman's own translation is, there the sun shines not. Of the sloka. Na tatra suryo bhati, na chandra tarakam, nema vidito bhamti, kutoyam agni. There the sun shines not, there the moon shines not, there the stars have no luster at all. And how can Agni burn there. There the sun shines not, and the moon has no splendor, and the stars are blind. There these lightnings flash not, Vidyut, lightnings flash not. How can then shall burn this earthly fire? In that place, how can this earthly burn? All that shines is but the shadow of His shining. All this universe is effulgent with His light. न चंद्र तारक न तत्र सूर्यो भाति न चंद्र तारकम नेमा विदितो भांति कुतोयमग्नि. A light not born of sun or moon, not fire. Means this terrestrial life, material life, they cannot shine itself. A light that dwelt within and saw within, shedding an intimate visibility, made secrecy. But what light? The light not of born of sun and all that thing, but the light which is within, shedding an intimate visibility, made secrecy more revealing than the word. Our sight and sense are a fallible gaze and touch, and only the Spirit's vision is wholly true. Now all this is very true, has to be true, is absolutely true. When you are in search of the soul, everything becomes in a way secondary, of no consequence, of no importance at all. Our sight and sense cannot touch that thing at all. Does it then mean that we forget about our sight? Does it mean that we forget about our sense? Our tools of cognition which we got, do we discard them? Do we give up our science, our technology, our pursuits in the material life? Because they are a fallible gaze. That would be a very dangerous kind of philosophy. This is applicable only when you have reached that particular stage. Until then, you have to use your sight and your sense. You have to use your sight and sense until then. Don't give up sight and sense too early. Our material means of pursuit of knowledge, of understanding, they have to be followed. And it is they who will, but once you have reached this particular stage, then keep them away. They are a fallible gaze at that point. Until then, you have to keep them. Means the materialist pursuit is required up to that point and should not be discarded. And as thus she passed in that mysterious place, through room and room, through door and rock-hewn door, she felt herself made one with all she saw. So all those figures which she is seeing there, she is identifying herself with them. And what identity? A sealed identity within her woke. She knew herself the beloved of the Supreme. These gods and goddesses were he and she. The mother was she of beauty and delight. The world in Brahma's vast creating class. The world fusions on Almighty Shiva's lap. The master and mother of all lives, watching the world that twin God had made, and Krishna and Radha forever entwined in blame. The adorer and adored, self-lost and one. This is the identity with all gods and goddesses. She knew herself the beloved of the Supreme. So, in fact, he has given a few examples. First, we have got the Supreme here, and she is the beloved. She is a, we have got here gods and goddesses. We have got he and she. We have got Brahma and Word. The creator, Word, his consort, Saraswati. In classing each other. The world fusions, Parvati and Shiva. So she is Brahma and his consort, Saraswati, Parvati and Shiva, master and mother. So she is Shiva and world fusion. She is master and mother. She is Krishna and Radha. She is adorer and adored. She is Vishnu and Lakshmi. She is Brahma and Saraswati. She is Shiva and Parvati. So she is, in other words, both the aspects of the person, of the presence are there. Presence and power. That is a constant theme which appears in Savitri at many places. Constantly there. You can call it self and nature. You can call it being and force working. So this is the twin aspect of Shiva and Shakti working together in different ways for different purposes. Now there is of course a difference in all of them, all these twins. She is Word and she is Brahma. She is seeing them one. She is Shakti and she is Shiva. Now they are not all the same. Brahma has his own quality, Shiva has his own quality, Vishnu has his own quality and function. There is a kind of uniqueness of each god doing certain thing. In the tradition of the triune, of the three gods, three Murti, Brahma, Vishnu and Mahesha, one is the creator, one is the sustainer and one is the destroyer. And their counterparts, their Shaktis, they are operating constantly. So she sees now, Savitri says, yes, I am here, I am here, I am here, I am here. But who is Savitri finally here? Krishna and Radha, the beloved, the sweet relationship of the two. But among these, who is Savitri? Who is the counterpart of Savitri? She knew herself the beloved. All of them are there. She is the beloved of the Supreme. She is the Word. She is the world fusions. She is the mother. She is Radha. She is adorer. All of them. Now, generally, identity or oneness is a spiritual experience. It is a spiritual experience. Means when you are doing yoga, climbing up plane above plane, then you experience the self and the counterpart as one. This is a spiritual experience. But what is happening here in the case of Savitri is that she is getting the spiritual experience in her inward occult journey, which is something different. In other words, the spiritual experience is joining, in this case, in the case of Savitri, with the inner experience. You see all that, but you don't see the spiritual vasanas in that kind of thing. Spiritual vasanas is elsewhere, cosmic city. She is getting that thing here. In the last chamber on a golden seat, She is one sat whose shape no vision could define. Only one felt the world's unattainable found, a power of which she was a straying force. So she sees a power there, divine power there, an invisible beauty. So she is power, she is beauty, she is sun of which all knowledge is a beam, a greatness without whom no life could be. Thence all departed into silent self. Silent self. This is a pure spiritual experience, not the experience of the inner type. And all became formless and pure and bare. So all these forms which have seen, all the forms have disappeared. Nirakara, Nirupa, they have become. And all became formless and pure and bare. Then, through a tunnel dug in the last rock, she came out where there shone a deathless sun. A house was there, all made of flame and light, and crossing a wall of doorless living fire. So you got the firewall, she's crossing that thing. Doorless living fire. Just suddenly she met her secret soul. She was told, go like this, like this, like this, and there she is meeting her secret soul. Now you have got here very picturesque description. And thus she passed in that mysterious place through room and room, through door and rock-hewn door. You can imagine now how she is going from courtyard to courtyard, courtyard to courtyard. In big temples you have got that kind of a thing. Ultimately you go to the inner part of the temple. You go then after that sanctum sanctorum, sanctum sanctorum, garbhagraha, where nobody can enter. Through door and rock-hewn door, she felt herself made one with all she saw. Now we have a very beautiful description of this from door to door, rock-hewn door she's passing by mother. What are the liberation of the psychic being mean? Because one has a feeling. This is a feeling one very often has in the beginning of the sadhana. I hope we have. But of course she is qualifying that thing, beginning of sadhana. So if you have begun our sadhana, then we can have that feeling. If you have not begun the sadhana at all, that question doesn't arise, you see. That the psychic being is as though shut up in a kind of hard shell, a prison. And that this is what prevents it from manifesting outwardly and entering into a conscious and constant relation with the outer consciousness. It is shut there. One has altogether this feeling that it has as though enclosed in a box. It is as though enclosed in a box, the psychic being. Mother is very picturesque. It is as though enclosed in a box or in a prison with walls which must be broken, or a door which must be forced in order to be able to enter, which must be forced. It is there. So naturally, if one can break the walls, open the door, it liberates the psychic being, which was shut in and which can now manifest externally. So once the psychic being comes out, then it can play its role in the outer circumstances, externally. All these are images, but each person naturally has his own personal image. So the way in which I go to temple, this thing, that thing, I got my own. Each one has his own image. But each person naturally has his own personal image, his personal method with small modifications. So it is not common formula for everybody. You go to, it's not a chemistry formula and then you work out and you get the products. Some of these images are very common to all those who have had the experience. For example, when one goes down into the depths of one's being to find the psychic, right at the bottom of one's consciousness, there is this image of descending into a deep well, as if you are going into the deep well. Going down deeper and deeper, descending, and it is as though one were truly sinking into a well, getting lost. How clear the image is there. Naturally, all these are analogies, but they are associations with the experience of impressions which give a great deal of force and concrete reality to the experience. She says images, but then there is a kind of a concreteness also. As when one goes on the discovery of one's inner being, of all the different parts of one's being, one very often has the feeling that one is entering deep into a hall or room according to the color, the atmosphere, the things it contains. One has a very clear perception of the part of the being one is visiting. And then one can go from one room to another door. It's exactly the same phrase. One can go from one room to another, open doors and go into deeper and deeper rooms, each of which has its own character. They are not just repetitions of room. Each has its own character. And often these inner visits can be made during the night. So let us sleep. Then it takes a still more concrete form, like a dream. So dream has a concrete form. And one feels that he is entering a house, and that this house is very familiar to him. This is exactly what we see in Savitri. And according to the time, the periods, it is internally different. So the same place, according to time, will be different. And sometimes it may be in a state of very great disorder, very great confusion, where everything is mixed up. Sometimes there are even broken things in that room. It is quite a chaos. At other times, these things are organized, but in their place, put in their place. It is as though one had arranged the household, one cleans up, puts it in order, and it is always the same house. This house is an image, a kind of objective image of your inner being. Of your inner being, not still the soul. And in accordance with what you see or do, you have a symbolic representation of your psychological work. It is very useful for concretizing. It depends upon people. From person to person, we change. Some people are just intellectuals. For them, everything is expressed by ideas and not by images. But if they were to go down into a more material domain, well, they risk not touching things in their concrete reality and remaining only in the domain of ideas, remaining in the mind and remaining there indefinitely. Then one thinks one is making progress, and mentally one has done so, though it is something altogether indefinite. The mind's progress may take thousands of years. So she is very critical of that, thousands of years, for it is very vast and very indefinite field, which is constantly renewed. But if one wants to progress in the vital and physical, well, this image representation becomes very useful for fixing the action. So she makes a distinction now between the mental idea and or the vital image and the physical, making it more concrete. Naturally, it doesn't happen completely at will. It depends on each one's nature. But those who have the power of concentrating with images, well, they have more facility. So you have got the image, you concentrate, Murti Puja, focus it on that, it becomes concrete for you. It becomes a living image. You identify yourself with that. It becomes one with you. So there is a meaning in that, you see. To sit in meditation before a closed door, as though it were a heavy door of bronze, and one sits in the front of it with a will that it may open. The door is closed, but one sits with the will. And to pass to the other side. And so the whole concentration, the whole aspiration is gathered into a beam and pushes against the door. You have to keep on pushing. And pushes more and more with an increasing energy until all of a sudden all burst open and one enters. It makes a very powerful impression. And so one is as though plunged into the light, and then one has the full enjoyment of a sudden radical change of consciousness with an illumination that captures one entirely, and the feeling that one is becoming another person. One is becoming another person. And this is a very concrete and very powerful way of entering into contact with one's psychic being. So this is the recipe Buddha has given, how to enter into contact with the psychic being. She has said this thing on 17th August 1955. All these things, questions and answers. Now, Mother has described this thing in 1955. What we had read just now in Savitri. This whole description belongs to the period 1947, 8 years prior to what Mother has described. Obviously, Mother is not describing on the basis of reading the description from Savitri, as we are doing. She has experienced that thing. That also does not mean that although she has spoken about it in 1955, that does not mean that she got that experience in 1955. She had described in 1955. It is something which had happened much earlier. Maybe during the time when she was writing prayers and meditations. At least 40 years before that, 40, 50 years before that, prayers and meditations. She was writing at that time those experiences, the psychic experiences. But you can see the parallelism between the two descriptions, what Mother has said, from door to door, and what we have got here in Savitri, and that she passed from room to through room to door and rock on door. Exactly the same phrase, so to say, see, in both the places. So this is a living experience. It's a description of it. It is not something which is imagined and given. You are really experiencing, and therefore you are describing it. And therefore there is a kind of an identity, even in the phrases of the whole thing, you see. Of course, when Shibendu was writing in the earlier part, his Savitri drafts in the 1930s, he used to read out those passages to the Mother. Whatever he has written in the night, whatever he has written in those days, he used to read out to the Mother. And the Mother said that this is exactly what I had experienced in the previous night. He is expressing my experiences. He is revealing my experiences. He is exposing me, he says, you see. Now, in other words, although Shibendu had written this thing in 1947, although Mother has spoken about it in 1955, they already knew the whole thing throughout, all along. And thus she passed in that mysterious place, to room and room, to door and rock and door. She felt herself made one with all she saw, and sealed identities, etc. This is very beautiful, very powerful description. You have one of the most powerful passages in Savitri, and this is one. Now, Shivandu is speaking here about Brahma, about Shiva, about Krishna and Radha. He has specifically named them. He has indirectly said word, he has described word fusions indirectly. Yeah. Lakshmi, Vishnu, all these gods and goddesses. Now, does this mean that Shivandu is describing the gods and goddesses of the Hindu religion? That is what people will jump up to say. He is talking of Hindu religion, which is all defunct, useless, that kind of a thing you see. They are certainly Hindu gods and goddesses. He is not talking about Athena or Zeus or Apollo or Aphrodite. He is talking of all Hindu gods and goddesses. So is Savitri a Hindu scripture? And this is a passage which those Pandits will quote to justify their stand, that this is a Hindu scripture. But obviously, from the very language, from the very mode of presentation, it is not describing a particular traditional experience. It is a spiritual experience which is being described. The spiritual, which is timeless, which is universal, which is applicable anywhere for them who are open to it. Psychic being, well, you see these powers and powers and powers, and you describe them, you give them name. It does not become Hindu. It is always a spiritual experience. If you don't see them, that's your fault, but it is so. It is an inner experience, which is universal. Anybody can approach and see if it is true or not. It's not a question of belief or being begot. That Shivandu is describing a Hindu mythology here, and he is presenting the ancient scripture here. It's not that at all. It is a spiritual experience altogether. And what we are saying in the case of the mother's experience also, it is universal. Those who are open to spiritual experiences, they will understand and follow it. It is not for the mental or for the traditional, for the religious mind at all. Savitri is not for them. It is not for them. It is universal. So you don't say it is European, it is English, it is Indian, it is Chinese. It's not that. Those who are open, they will see that kind of a thing, you see, always. In the last chamber on a golden seat, one sat whose shape no vision can define. And then of course he says, finally, a house was there that all made of flame and light, and crossing a wall of dolorous living fire. Shiva asked to go like this, winding staircase. There, suddenly she met her secret soul. Now this is one of the most beautiful descriptions we have of their coming together. A being stood immortal in transience. Who is this being? Her secret soul. Her secret soul. You see, in the previous canto, the triple world forces, we have seen three powers. The first one was, of course, the Madonna of grief, of suffering, of pity. Well, let me put it this way. First you have got, 122.39. Savitri heard a voice, the first Madonna, heard a voice, and echo heard the counterpart. And then, and turning to her being of pity, she is turning to her being of pity. And then again, 123.55, second Madonna, and turning to her being of power, she spoke. Savitri is turning to her being of pity, Savitri is turning to her being of power, and in the third case, Savitri is turning to her being of light. While she is answering to them, she is turning to her being of pity, being of power, being of light. To her being, it is that being here. A being stood immortal. She met her first as being of pity, then being of power, then being of light. Savitri turned to her being of pity, which also corresponds to the Madonna of suffering, and then Mother of grief divine. So we got three things: her being of pity, Madonna of suffering, and Mother of grief divine. Three things are there. Then secondly, same thing, Savitri turned to her being of power, that is Mother of might. Madonna of might, and Mother of work and force. And lastly, and Savitri turned to her being of light, Madonna of light, Mother of joy and peace. So we have got three things now: being of pity and Madonna of suffering, being of power and Madonna of might, being of light and Madonna of light. And the counterparts of them are Mother of grief divine, Mother of work and force, Mother of joy and peace. So there are three things now simultaneously: being of her being and mother aspect, the being aspect and the mother aspect of it. Both are there simultaneously. Mother of grief divine, Mother of work and force, Mother of joy and peace. And in that context, if you see now here, a being stood immortal in transience. The three parts of this being are the being of pity, the being of power, the being of light, of that being. And corresponding to them are the mother aspect of it. So this being is already connected with what we have seen in the aspects of Savitri's soul forces. A being stood immortal in transience. Now, there is a little difference between Madonna and a mother. As I said last time, the Madonna aspect is closer to the individual. The mother aspect is the counterpart of the transcendent. It is not that mother of might and Madonna of might and mother of work and force is not the same thing. They are different altogether. One is more intimately connected to the individual soul, and the other corresponding to its counterpart in the transcendent, the mother aspect. She is the mother. From where these things flow, issue out. In a way, you can say as if the Madonna is the daughter of that mother. So this being, when you see here now, immortal, she is the Supreme Shakti herself, the divine as a consciousness force. That is what this being as an individual in the transcendent. This being is not Savitri's psychic being. That is very important. This being is not Savitri's psychic being. It is the transcendental aspect of the divine Shakti operating in a certain context. See, it is this being, therefore, which is the secret soul of Savitri. She, Savitri, the aspiring soul, is meeting the transcendental soul. A being stood immortal in transience, deathless, dallying with momentary things, in whose wide eyes of tranquil happiness, which pity and sorrow could not abrogate, infinity turns his gaze on finite shapes, observer of the silent steps of the hours, and the passing scenes of the everlasting plain, in the mystery of his selecting will, in the divine comedy, a participant, the Spirit's conscious representative, God's delegate in our humanity, comrade of the universe, the transcendence ray. She had come into the mortal body's room to play at ball with time and circumstances. She, that being is feminine. We should see some of the details more carefully. I just copied the same passage. A being stood here. Now, in the revised edition, we have got here hours with a comma. And play with a full stop. And there is a line, extra line in between these two. This is what we have in the revised edition. In other words, 14 lines of this text as a single sentence have become 2 sentences here with the full stop here. So we have got additional comma is here, full stop is here, and this additional line is here in the revised edition. As I told you last time, there is absolutely no detail available how this change has been made from the original text. This appears only in the revised edition. It is not there at all in any other edition of Savitri. These 3 things. But let us see first this sentence. It's a complex sentence. 14 lines, a perfect sonnet. Sonnet is a poetic composition of 14 lines. So this is a perfect 1-line sonnet, which has got split in the revised edition. I feel sorry for that. It has become 8 and 7 there, 15. Now, a being stood immortal in transience, A being stood in transience. That's the first sentence. Who is this? What is this being doing? She is toying with momentary things. Dallying. The second line. Okay, let's go back to a being is dallying or toying with momentary things. She is toying. In whose wide eyes? Whose wide eyes? Of that being. In her wide eyes, there is a tranquil happiness. And that happiness is such that no sorrow, no pity can terminate it. The happiness of those eyes is such that neither sorrow nor pity or anything else can terminate it all. And it is through those eyes infinity turns its gaze into finite shapes. That being's eyes are looking at infinity, at the finite things. That is the grammatical substance of this line. A being stood in transience, all right. That being is, of course, deathless. And her eyes are wide eyes. And those eyes are with tranquil happiness. And with that tranquil happiness is such that no pity and sorrow can terminate that happiness. And with those eyes, she is looking at finite shapes. What does she look? She is the observer. What is she looking? She is observing the silent steps of the hours. The hours are coming, because transience. She is observing the silent steps of the hours and the passing scene. So she is the observer of the silent, of these hours and of the passing scenes. With those eyes, she is observing the hours and the passing scenes. Now here, of course, that it stands for infinity. It stands for infinity. Observer of the silent steps of the hour and the passing scenes of the hour. So she is looking at them. And then continues, she is observing in the mystery of the selecting will, in the divine comment. So the spirit's conscious, she is this conscious representative of the spirit. She is the conscious representative of the spirit. She is the delegate of God in humanity. She is the comrade of the universe. She is the transcendence ray. She is the spirit's conscious representative. She is the participant in the divine comedy. She is the spirit's representative. She is the delegate of God in humanity. She is the comrade friend of the universe. She is the ray of the transcendent. In what context? In the mystery of its selecting will. It's very complex. I will see you. In its mystery, that it stands for mystery. I will show you. We'll go through that once more. Yeah, we'll go through that once more. Now, in the mystery of its selecting will, it stands for mystery. That you understand. Now, the divine comedy, we'll see that. Now, for what? She had come in that mystery in the mortal's body to play with time and circumstance. She is this comrade, God delegate, representative, ray, she is all that. And in the mystery of some will, she has come into the mortal body. She has come into the mortal body. Pardon me?
The psychic could also select to do something else But it selects now to come into the mortal body.
Yeah, she is there, she is watching from there.
But if it's not selecting the mortal body and come to the
She has come in the mortal body.
yes.
Come into the mortal body. For what? To play with time and circumstance.
Yeah, but if it's not doing that right now, it could also do something else, not on earth or somewhere else.
No, that is what Savitri is saying. A being stood, that being is doing all this.
Yeah, it is doing all this, but it has to say the selective will. What means selective in that context? I don't understand.
She is working there, she is operating there in the mortal's body. She has taken that mortal body.
Yeah, that is clear, but it's selecting.
Now that will happen next sentence now. What she is going to do, that will come later on as a description. At this point, he has described what is this being. That she has come here with all of those things to play a game of ball in the mortal world. The divine soul has come here for what purpose? To have some kind of fun in the mortal world.
Yes, but the soul could have a choice also to incarnate or do something else.
No, it's not incarnation. She is a delegate, that's an incarnation. She is a representative, that's an incarnation. She is the divine's ray, that is also an incarnation. Actually, what it means is that all of us are incarnations of our Jivatman, transcendental soul up there, who is fixed. He has sent us a part here, and it is who plays, who grows, who expands, who enjoys, who progresses, who evolves. You see, but that person up there, who is the counterpart of it, he is watching from above how it is happening, and at appropriate places, whenever it is necessary, it will intervene as things progress. So, to summarize this thing, a being stood in transience, all right, she is toying with momentary things. In her eyes, infinity turns towards finite things, and pity and sorrow cannot put an end to the tranquil happiness of those wide eyes. She is the observer of the steps of the hours and of the passing scene. She is the Spirit's conscious representative. She is the participant in the divine comedy. She is the participant in the mystery of the secret will. She is in the secret will of that mystery. She is God's delegate. She is comrade of the universe. She is the transcendence ray. She has come in this body to play with time and circumstance. So that's the whole description of these 14 lines. Means all that thing up to here is describing who this being is in a very complex manner. Who this being is. And that being is here in this body to play ball with time and circumstance. That's the gist of the whole story, you see. Now, this is the sense of what we had in the original edition of Savitri. But the moment you put a full stop here and add a line, extra line here, and put a comma here, then the connections get different. What happens in the revised edition is this one. Observer of the silent steps of the hour, eternity upheld the minutes acts, this is additional line, minutes acts, and the passing scenes of the everlasting play. How do we understand now this one? The earlier things remain as they are. Observer of the silent steps of the hours, eternity upheld the minutes acts, and the passing scenes of the everlasting play. Here, eternity becomes the observer. Observer of the silent steps of the hours, who? Eternity. See, the whole sense has changed now. Eternity. Eternity becomes the observer. Observer of what? Of the steps of ours. Observer of what? Of the passing scenes.
It's very unpersonal, suddenly.
Yeah.
Not more personal, it's unpersonal.
Yeah. So the whole sense changes. Now it's impossible to settle unless we know what is it.
And one cannot find out who did this.
Impossible. Well, I hope one day it will happen. Yeah. Yeah. See, basically, such a change, we don't have this comma here, we don't have this line here, we don't have this full stop here, but a comma here. Now, it is very likely that somewhere in the process, this line was missed while copying or typing or whatever. I believe that this is a dictated passage, and Nirulbaran has taken down, maybe it is not copied by him, missed, or maybe it is not typed. It's possible, we don't know. We can make just a guess of that thing. But the fact that after that miscopying or mistranscription, this whole passage was read out to Sri Aurobindo, and it means that he did not put this comma, full stop there. When this line was not read out to him, then to make a sense, he removed this full stop from here, he removed this comma from here. In other words, the miscopied transcription was revised by Sri Aurobindo to give this particular form. So both the things might be genuine, that there is a miscopying. Sri Aurobindo had this, because this is a line which nobody can manufacture. It is Sri Aurobindo's line, there is no doubt about that thing. Somewhere it got missed, there is no doubt about that thing. But now the point is, although this might be the original intention, but that original intention, original transcription, manuscript got revised in view of this missing line, it means that there is sort of a deliberate attention given to what we have here in the final text. So if at all we have to do something, what we should do is keep this whole thing as it is in the text and give this thing as a footnote. As a footnote.
There is another version.
Yeah. Now, well, this is what happened. Use this thing as a footnote and keep that thing as it is in the text. And say that this is a line, a dictated line, this happened, that happened, whatever it is. Give some details about the way it got missed or whatever it is. Be factually truthful in the presentation. Instead of imposing this thing without any background like this. See, the whole sense changes. Here, eternity becomes the observer. There is no question of eternity here at all. Observer of the silent steps and the passing scenes. So, this is the story of the beautiful sonnet, 14 line, 126.1, you see. But the most important thing is this being. And Savitri, she turned to her being of pity, she turned to her being of power, she turned to her being of light in the previous canto, getting linked up here.